So welcome everyone to a conversation series, GIS and Equity, hosted by the California Geographic Information Association. Our session today is GIS Equity for Rural California. This is the third in our series, and my name is Dan Scollin. I am an instructor and coordinator of the GIS program at Shasta College. I'm also one of the principals in North State GIS, which is an organization and web platform that promotes GIS in the region. I'm also a board member of CGIA, and I'm coordinating our engagement committee. So this is part of our effort. And just wanted to give you a little bit of an introduction to kind of what we're about before we enter into our conversation today. So a little bit about CGIA's mission, which generally is to promote effective use of GIS in California. I have highlighted a few things. We promote the exchange and management of geographic information in the state of California, including trying to advance the spatial data infrastructure. We are promoting consistent standards and procedures for accuracy and quality of geographic data. We support and promote the practice of GIS, as well as monitoring developments in the field, providing resources for our membership, and promoting the exchange of ideas and information. And you see a few links down there. So I'd like to encourage anyone who is not a member of CGIA to go out to the website and join up. And I think you'll find that there's some useful resources and contacts and connections that result from this. I've had the pleasure of getting to get acquainted, especially with some folks from the southern parts of our state, including at the recently concluded Cal GIS conference I was at last year in Monterey, but not this past year in Visalia. So just a few of our sustaining members. So if you're an organization, there's a variety of options for sustaining memberships that support the organization, CGIA. So check it out. We're also offering a professional development webinar series. We had a session on GISP last month, and coming up on April 3rd, so next week, is one that's looking at certificates and degrees in GIS. So you can check out information on the website related to that. And so with that, I will go ahead and we're going to start off with Kelly Sheen, and I'm really pleased to have both Kelly Sheen and Jackie Froeming joining us today. And Kelly and I have a little bit of a history. We go back a few years, so it's great to hear about things that are happening in Trinity County. And then Jackie's going to share a little bit about things that are going on in Modoc County. So a couple of great sort of case studies for rural communities, rural counties, and how GIS is being used. So Kelly, if you'd like to go ahead and do a screen share, I'll hand it over to you. So Kelly's the director of the Trinity County Resource Conservation District.
Yeah, a little bit about myself. I'll pop up a couple of borrowed slides that I've got and possibly show off a little bit of GIS here in a little bit. My name is Kelly Sheen. I actually grew up here in Weaverville in Trinity County, and have been the district manager for the Trinity County Resource Conservation District for about 7 years. Prior to that, I was for about 22 years ish. I was the GIS manager for the Trinity County RCD, and so have done a lot of work building GIS capability here. And I'll touch on sort of some of that history when as we go along here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Here. So Trinity County, very rural. It's a fairly large county in the state, 2.1 million acres. 75% of that is in federal land holdings. 12% of and of the 25% that remains in public land holdings, about 12 of that is industrial timberlands. We only have about 16,000 people that live in here. And of that, we have, and with that, we have 14 wildfire-wise communities. None of our communities are incorporated cities, so no infrastructure for incorporated cities in the county at all. And we do have one traffic light, which was quite a big to-do a couple of years back when it was installed. But with regard to my work with GIS here, I started with well, I actually studied architecture when I was younger and worked for an architect in the Bay Area for a number of years. And then my dad called me up and said, hey, he's a forester. I need some assistance computerizing my business. And so I came back to Trinity County as a young man and worked with him for a couple of years. And that's what started me into sort of resource management. Didn't really have a background in it, just more of a geospatial awareness, and started doing accounting for him and map making and all this kind of stuff. And then eventually got a job with the Trinity County Resource Conservation District. And when I first started here, I was doing IT work, really. And then basically from there, they said, you're pretty good with computers. They got a conservation grant through ESRI, and we started, they said, you're pretty good with computers, here, try this out. And so I started in with ArcMap 2.0, way long time ago. And what we realized very quickly was that the RCD, our jurisdiction basically covers the entirety of the county. And as I said, 75% land holdings. We were doing a very large project in Grass Valley Creek, watershed restoration in a highly decomposed granitic soils, post-timber industry impacted watershed. And what we realized was that there wasn't a lot of GIS back in those days. So I started collecting data from the Forest Service and from the BLM and from the state, and sort of compiling all this. In those days, there was like two other people in the county that were using GIS other than myself. So I learned a lot from them, but there was effectively nobody at the county was doing that. So when they started realizing that we were building GIS, like data sets across boundaries for roads and for stream networks and everything else that kind of goes into base maps to start with, they became very interested because they wanted to actually start converting, assessors' parcel maps into like a seamless GIS across the county, so that they could start using it for, zoning districts and general planning designations, and eventually got into elections and redistricting and a number of other things. So I spent a year of my life basically building a seamless countywide parcel map, long before parcel fabrics were in existence, transferring like all my AutoCAD knowledge from working at a architectural firm came in handy, because I was able to compile all these DWG files into one big seamless layer. So back in those days, we were doing watershed analysis on Forest Service lands, and that was the precursor to what's become NEPA as far as environmental compliance is concerned. And that was really what drove a lot of this sort of cross-boundary kind of looking at watersheds, looking at a much broader picture of resource management in the county. And then starting to get pulled into, as I said, some of these other tasks with the county. We eventually became the de facto GIS data stewards for Trinity County, and still continue to this day to be involved in managing their data. And that has kind of grown out the breadth of work that we do, not only with our partners with regard to wildfire resilience and things of this nature, but basically just the cannabis division of the planning department has leaned heavily on us for accurate, like survey grade GIS, so that they can be tracking permitting and things of that nature. So I'll just show a couple of these other slides real quick. What got the district, we were mostly doing watershed restoration back in the mid-90s, but in 1998, 99, the Megram fire happened on the western portion of our county. And at the time, it was the largest wildfire, one of the largest wildfires in California history at 125,000 acres. And now, obviously that pales in comparison to what we've been seeing over the recent past. But we've moved into an era where wildfire resilience is like a huge part of what we do at the Trinity County RCD. And so we've been building partnerships over the past 20 years with the Forest Service, with BLM, with SPI, one of the larger industrial timber landowners here in Trinity County, as well as working with private local landowners. And then moving forward, we actually do implementation. We have crews and all that kind of stuff. So the GIS really is sort of driven that. And back when Megram fire started, there was really a kind of a hole in our community as far as who is taking on the idea of like, how are we going to fire safe the communities? So we built a very impromptu kind of fire safe council that's not a 501c3 or anything. It's just a loose amalgamation of VFD folks and fire professionals from all the state and local agencies, and from that arose one of the first community wildfire protection plans in the state, and that was a heavily GIS oriented exercise. And ever since then, I think the first one was published in 2002. And then about every 5 years, we have done an update on that. So we're actually going to be having that process kicking off here in a couple of months for our 2025 update. And so all that to say that our district got heavily involved in wildfire resilience at a pretty early stage in the county here, and from that has grown out significant amounts of GIS that's specifically been tailored to managing that sort of data. And we tend to also, again, as data stewards of the county, we've oftentimes just taken that on ourselves as far as compiling projects that are being completed by the Forest Service or the BLM or our own crews or other organizations like the Watershed Research and Training Center, who has a really strong forest health and fire program as well. And we're close partners with all those folks. And so in the early 2000s, we also became stewards of the Weaverville Community Forest, which surrounds the town of Weaverville. And again, sort of built upon more of that that partnership aspect of how we compile and share data and what types of data we've got. And so it's a fairly extensive, use of the work that had been, done, previous. As we all probably know, like mother is necessity is the mother of invention. So, as we were taking on new responsibilities, both with our partners and with the county, we started doing more and more, just building bigger and broader data sets. And, now I think even more recently, I mentioned that we were working with the planning department, doing a lot of the parcel work and the zoning and whatnot. And then the planning division, the cannabis division of the planning department has leaned on us pretty heavily for creating opt-out zones for cannabis cultivation in the county. And one of the other things that I was going to share just real quick is that's kind of related to that is does everybody see the old version of ArcMap on their screens? Okay. I'm going to zoom into an area that's been pretty heavily impacted by these activities here called Post Mountain, which is out past south of Hayfork. And what I'm showing here is sort of a vast subdivision that's kind of out in the middle of, I'm going to take off the transportation. There's about 1,100 parcels in this subdivision, and it's kind of out in the middle of nowhere. And for the sake of illustration, I'll zoom in just a little tighter. And I'll show you a little bit of how this has evolved for us here in Trinity County. They turn off the parcels. This aerial photo was of that subdivision in 2004. And granted, this subdivision was created in the late 1970s. So it had been in existence for almost 30 years. But there was just a very small community of stalwart, rugged individualists that were living kind of in the middle of nowhere. But as the green rush began to start in, well, actually prior to that, I'll show you 2010, you see a little bit of development, you see a little bit more home pads being created and a little bit more activity sort of in that subdivision. But by the time the green rush really started in 2016, all of a sudden, boom, there was land being cleared, en masse to create space for, what we would hope are licensed, cultivation sites. That influx of people into this area had a significant impact on the county just in general. I'll show you a couple more. There's not a lot of change between this and say the 2020 aerial photo. There's a little bit more development. 22, there's a little bit more development. But one of the things I wanted to illustrate too is how this piece of what's happening, what the cultural changes that were happening here in Trinity County with the green rush, the legalization of cannabis in general. I'm going to zoom back out to this layer and show you what our supervisorial district boundaries, which I was integrally involved with, our redistricting back in 2010. This was the result of the changes that we had from the previous, from the 2000 census. It was had a fairly significant modification, and trying to balance all this was quite a task. But then when we got into 2021, post green rush, the boundaries changed significantly because, oops, turn this off. Post Mountain here became a highly populated. I mean, they were estimating that there was somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 Hmong that had moved into the area and were making a go at cannabis cultivation there. And so because of that, it sort of shifted a lot of the demographics and sort of the nature of how we look at our communities politically in Trinity County. So being involved with a process like the redistricting process, and knowing, you know, that people like myself and Darrell Forsland and some, you know, what I consider kind of old timers in the planning world here in Trinity County, being involved in making these changes based on how we have grown to know the communities and how those communities have changed has been an interesting thing to watch over time. So I think I'll just leave it at that for now, because I'm pushing 20 minutes, I guess, or 15 minutes. So Dan, I think we were going to have a little conversation.
Yeah. Thanks, Kelly. That was interesting and enlightening, and you know, it's really commendable where you guys have taken GIS over the years, and it's interesting to see how really it kind of came out of a grassroots effort. And interestingly, you and I, Kelly, I think we go back about 20 years or so, and I remember the Grass Valley Creek watershed. One of the things that it would be helpful, I think, for the audience to know is that in the mid-1990s, the Northwest Forest Plan dramatically curtailed timber harvesting. So there were a lot of unemployed folks, and the Watershed Center was sort of born out of that. And the Watershed Regional Training Center is a thriving enterprise all these many years later, which again is a testament to the talent and the fortitude of folks in the area. And I guess one other thing I would just mention before we kind of launch into the questions is go to Trinity County. It's you know, some of the most beautiful country you will ever encounter, and the Trinity River, and certainly the Trinity Alps wilderness. Weaverville's a really fun, cute little town, and is definitely a place to check out. So Kelly, you know, one of the things I think was noteworthy, and something that I think is again commendable, is that there really does seem to be sort of a cross-jurisdictional cooperation that's going on. You mentioned the stewardship agreement on the community forest with the Bureau of Land Management. Obviously, the Forest Service is a huge player in the area. Sierra Pacific Industries is a big player. Folks like the Watershed Center. So how did that process unfold? How did those agreements start to get into place?
Well, in all honesty, I went ahead and brought this back up to talk a little bit about this, because this actually is a good launching point. Because like I said, we started the Trinity County Fire Safe Council in about 1999, and then shortly thereafter, there was a bit of a NIMBY thing that was about to happen in about 2002. We became aware of, and some local individuals became aware of, the fact that this area just to the south and the west of Weaverville was in BLM land ownership, and they were going to be basically doing a land swap. They were planning to land swap that out with SPI. And at that time, you know, one of SPI's primary, you know, silvicultural practices was clear cutting. And so people were very concerned that we would start having like clear cuts clearly visible from our little Shangri-La here in downtown Weaverville. And so the public came to the RCD and to the BLM, and the BLM said, well, we understand that you don't want to necessarily do that, but if we want to manage this land, and there's good timber on it, we want it to be doing something good for the community in some way. And so they started talking about this new authority called master stewardship agreements that basically would allow, an entity to sort of take over stewardship of federal public lands. And so this little block of sort of darker brown here is what they call the Weaverville 1000. And it was the first 1,000 acres that were moved into the Weaverville Community Forest. But they needed to have some sort of public agency that could take that stewardship, the responsibility of that stewardship. And so we were approached and then brought into that. We, the Trinity County RCD, were brought into that negotiation, and we've been in place ever since then. So that was the first chunk. That was a 10-year agreement. And then about 3 years later, the Forest Service liked that idea so much that they thought, well, maybe we should go ahead, and they've got their own authority that was a very similar type of agreement. And they said, well, we've got all this area on the northern portion of the basin. Let's go ahead and connect all of that in with the community forest as well. So this is that dark green area up here. And then after the first 10 years ran up at 2015 with BLM, and they re-upped with us and then added another 2,300. So we're at about just shy of 15,000 acres. And that process was set up in such a way that there was again, an informal steering committee made up primarily of the associated agencies and then a lot of local interested parties. And they have guided a lot of the work that we've done, like thinning harvests within the community forest. And then that money was piped back in to the community forest, doing service work, fuels reduction projects, things of that nature to protect the community of Weaverville. And the prevailing winds that come up the Trinity River basically come up and over the hill and then down into Weaverville. We've had 3 fires in the past 20 years that have blown almost like right into downtown. And if we hadn't done a lot of this work, fuel breaks up on the ridge tops, thinning, defensible space around homes, and things of this nature, fuels reduction projects in and around the community. I think we could have ended up very much like, paradise during the campfire. So those partnerships are absolutely critical. And from that concept of the steering committee was also born another entity that's called the Trinity County Collaborative Group, and we also facilitate that group. And that one is at scale, like it basically addresses the resource concerns throughout the entirety of Trinity County. As well as, the Trinity River Watershed Council. We're involved in a lot of those sorts of processes where we're bringing in, associated agencies, landowners, managers, resource professionals, public, and all of that.
Yeah, thanks for describing that again. It's really informative, I think, for a lot of communities. Shasta County is currently in the process of redoing our community wildfire protection plan, which you mentioned. You highlighted the fire-wise communities, and I think increasingly, addressing the wildfire crisis, as it were, is something that requires collaboration, cooperation. Can you speak briefly to how GIS has sort of created opportunities within the county?
What I've found is that there's a lot of young professionals that we don't have a very deep gene pool here with the limited number of people that we have in the county. So a lot of the organizations like ours, like the counties, going to be basically hiring in specific resource managers and young professionals, all of which at this point generally have GIS skills and have some sort of end user kind of experience. But there are others too that are doing some fairly amazing modeling. A number of people, that are now employed by the Watershed Research and Training Center, as well as here at the district, are doing some pretty heavy lifting in the Upper Trinity River watershed, having a look at how which flows into the Trinity Dam, which has a diversion that goes into the Central Valley, creating power, and providing water for the agriculture in the valley. And so, this project, we have a kind of a combined project with the Watershed Center where we're analyzing the Upper Trinity watershed for, with the drought as it's been, we've been experiencing. The state has become very interested in water retention and water quality and water quantities and how to increase that. And since we've seen sort of the past 2 winters have been fairly what we would consider normal. But, for the drought years that preceded it, obviously there was a great reduction in snowpack, both here in the Cascades and the coastal range, as well as in the Sierras. So water retention and water quantity has been at the top of their mind. So this is just one of the ways where we're bringing in modeling and people, that have, a fairly high degree of understanding of what the capabilities of GIS are, and actually, utilizing it in real time to study these things so that we can actually then begin to plan projects to address those situations.
Very good. You had mentioned that there's some efforts to bring GIS out into the Trinity County schools as well.
Oh, yes. Our GIS manager, Denise Wesley, who I think was one of your students actually, is on the call here today. She's been working with the Trinity County Office of Education I think she's putting together a dashboard that basically looks at the metrics of early childhood development for the Trinity County Office of Education. So, I mean, like I said, a lot of these bits and pieces that have kind of come together over the past almost 30 years have really sort of culminated into this much broader scope as people start to really realize how powerful GIS is. And I'm preaching to the choir here, but the fact of the matter is that as we are discovering new ways to actually utilize the information and bring data out into the public sphere, it's the GIS is oftentimes driving a lot of that, even if it's maybe not as upfront in sort of the product that's going out to the public, but it's still a significant portion of how this data is being sort of analyzed and used and shared.
Thank you. So you had talked a little bit about Post Mountain, and of course Trinity County is part of the famed Emerald Triangle. And you talked about some of the evolution of things, and I think being California residents, it's hard to go anywhere without seeing the local dispensaries and what have you. And I think it's informative to a wider audience to kind of know what some of the marijuana growing regions are looking like. And I had the opportunity to drive through that Post Mountain area, and it was a little bit surreal. I mean, there was it looked like the carcasses of whales with all these white bones of greenhouses that had been sort of left to wither on the vine, and it does seem like the green rush has kind of hit a little bit of a bust. And I wonder if you could just talk briefly to how that's playing out in the county these days.
That I think the biggest issue with regard to that continues to be, somewhat problematic is just, and the biggest complaint I would say from the white market growers is that, there's been sort of a stall in in the county's process and being able to process out, licensing. And so there's still a lot of folks here, and there's still a lot of them that are trying to make a solid go out of this as being their livelihood. But they've run into a lot of roadblocks at the state level, at the local level, and then there's still stigma and associated with that. And obviously, with a lot of the people that I interact with, there's people that are supportive, there's people that aren't supportive. But it definitely has brought, we in that 10-year period, they were in, I think in the 2010 census, we had like 13,700-ish people. And then it was, like 2,500 more people had entered into the county versus the 5% growth that they had anticipated. But that was all due to that. And so the economy is somewhat changed, I'd say, just because there is more people shopping at local stores and eating at local restaurants and that sort of thing. Not to say that there aren't elements, of that industry that are I would say less desirable as a social kind of commentary, but it has sort of changed, obviously, like I illustrated, like the demographic of the county has changed relatively significantly. And so to be able to sort of look at that and see how that's happened has been pretty interesting. I would definitely concur, the green rush is kind of, as the market is sort of leveled out, and sort of dropped, which is what everybody anticipated was going to happen. The people that are left are the people that really kind of believe in the thing and are making like a significant go at trying to make it happen. And they've unfortunately been heavily regulated in a way that most ag producing industries aren't. And so that piece of it has been sort of, there's been some loggerheads with regard to, various elements of the community as it's evolved over the past, I'd say, 8 to 10 years. So it's definitely notable.
Yeah, one to be continued, to be sure. Thanks for sharing your insights on that and all of your other comments, Kelly. Appreciate it. I'm going to drop into the chat an article that I recently had published in the California Geographer Journal on the Klamath Mountains region, which is sort of my attempt to sort of wrap my geographic brain around this vast region of which Trinity County sort of sits right in the heart of. So you can check that out if that's of interest. And meanwhile, we're going to go ahead and shift gears here, and we're going to bring Jackie Froeming, who works for Modoc County as an associate planner and is doing GIS work for the county as well. So thanks for coming on, Jackie, and you can go ahead and share screen if you would like, and I'll hand over the mic.
Okay, thank you. Just one second. Sorry, I'm working off my laptop, so bear with me. All right, hello, I'm Jackie Froeming. I'm the associate planner for Modoc County, work for the planning and building services over there.
Hey, Jackie, can I, sorry to interrupt, I'm just wondering, maybe you could just put from current slide or from the beginning, and that way we'll get kind of the maximum benefit of your slides there. Thank you.
Give me just a second. All right. I don't know why the notes section came up. Can you guys see?
You can go to the top there, display settings,
there we
and
go.
up screens. There we go.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties. All right. So I've worked out for the county since 2016. Now, Modoc County is a really unique county. It's very rural. The county one of the county slogan is "Where the West Still Lives," and on that slide is our website. All right, so I'm going to go over some quick facts on Modoc County. It was established in 1874. It's about 4,200 square miles. We have one incorporated area, which is the city of Alturas. That is also the county seat. We are very sparsely populated, and we have experienced population decline 10% since 2010, and it's the current population is approximately 8,700. When I did go to the census website, it actually shows that as of July of 2023, it was 8,500. And our county is surrounded by the federal lands. This is just a map of Modoc County, and I wanted to bring this up because we are a good-sized county. And we are very spread out. As you can see, our population areas are very spread out, and you see all around us is the federal lands, different federal government associations. Our economy and lifestyle. Okay, so I love our mission statements. I'm going to go over that. Modoc County is a collaborative community where people, families, governments, and businesses live, work, and thrive. It is a wonderful place to live. Our largest employers include obviously Modoc County, the U.S. Forest Service, CAL FIRE, California Highway Patrol, City of Alturas, and we do have local businesses, and there are various agricultural operations, both corporate and family owned. One of the things that we do face in Modoc County, like other rural counties, is economic development is a challenge due to the limited resources that we actually have available to us. And that's something that I moved to Modoc, and there has not been too many new business that come into there. So one of the reasons that I got invited to talk on this was because it's kind of how GIS can help the community, like a rural community. And these are just some of the things that I see that it can do. Provide the ability to map infrastructure such as well, location, septic systems, provide public information online, which we don't have right now, like zoning, general plan, roads, etc. So now if people need zoning or general plan information for specific parcels, they actually have to call our office. And I actually have to look up on our GIS system that we have that we're using currently and tell them what the zoning is. It would help with mapping of historical sites and points of interest, and then also vacant land inventory. Modoc County has a lot of undeveloped land in the area, and it would be useful, especially for like our housing element and stuff like that, to have our vacant land inventory mapped online. Current GIS challenges in Modoc County. Like I said, we are currently using ARC map 10.8, but our data definitely needs to be updated and organized. Funding is a big issue. We do have limited staffing. I know how to do GIS stuff, and I know of one other person in the roads department that does GIS stuff. We don't actually have a GIS department. And another thing that is like training other staff and other departments to use GIS. We're hoping future GIS direction and growth. We are moving to hopefully our GIS online, getting help with updating and organizing our current information, building a geo database with updated information, to relocate our current GIS information for easy access. So for instance, as I mentioned that I work with GIS and the roads, there's a person in roads does. Roads maintains their layer. I don't have access to that layer. And then I maintain like the address layer and the zoning layers. And that's not in a centrally located area where people can easily like log on to like our GIS and get that information in other areas. And then we are moving towards hopefully in the future a public facing GIS system, which I find will be very useful, not just for the public, but for like other counties in the area, and because I feel, and I don't know how to quite explain this, but in the smaller rural counties, it's like it would be good to collaborate with the other counties to work on helping each other with our GIS maps to kind of be able to match up our data to them. So our stuff in, say, in Modoc County, and then we have the neighboring counties right next, and having the ability to provide that information, I feel would be helpful. And then I just kind of put up some websites with additional information on Modoc County on here. The Census Gov Quick Facts, it kind of tells you about what our census is right now. And Destination Modoc has a lot of information about, I don't know if, can you guys see that my screen where it says I went to that census? This is actually a really good website, and it's got a lot of information. If you've never visited Modoc County, please hit up this website. You see the beautiful like landscape photos that we have, the information on the outdoors and the mission of the outdoor recreation tourism. And then they have, Modoc County has a lot of historic points of interest here. And it kind of goes into explain a lot of like the Modoc National Forest, the Lava Beds National, and the things that the natural resources that we do have here. And I think that was actually the end of my slide, but I'm going to actually pull up the census one to kind of, so you can see how I was talking about the population. Estimated as of July 1st, as of 2020, it was 8,700. Now it's showing as of 2023, it's 8,500. So I maybe not a lot of loss in population, but we're still losing a consistent amount of population each year, which is a bit of an issue. And that could be because, and I feel like if our GIS system was up, people could get more information on Modoc County to come visit it. And I think that was the end of my slideshow. So I just kind of booted out. There we go.
Thanks, Jackie. That was really informative. And I think you really touched on a couple of the issues, really, I think that kind of motivated us to schedule this conversation. And I've got a few questions I'll kind of throw just to keep the conversation going, but I did want to encourage our listeners to type questions into the chat as well. I'm going to also post a resource. Jackie and I had an interesting conversation just about kind of the nature of the changes that are taking place in rural communities. And, one of the things that we came across was this discussion, and I thought this was a really excellent point, is that, you can have thriving urban areas and declining rural areas, and that really the urban areas ultimately are suffering when rural areas are suffering. And we have seen a lot of decline. And you alluded to the displacement issue, and one of the things that we're seeing a lot of is displacement as a result of wildfire, which I don't think is so much the case in Modoc County, but Kelly had mentioned the Paradise Fire, and the Paradise community has lost 56% of its population since that fire. So we're starting to see a lot of these rural communities suffering. And you alluded to this, Jackie, and I wonder if maybe you could elaborate a little bit on this. North State GIS, ostensibly our hope was to be able to pull in some of the more outlying counties and provide support. Jane Schaefer-Kramer at the beginning of the call was talking about her interest in the GIS Corps as kind of a model where GIS professionals are able to get out and provide support sometimes during emergencies and so forth. But maybe we need to be looking at some kind of a model for how some of these more resource-rich areas in terms of GIS can provide support to rural counties. And I wonder if you have any insights on how best to provide that kind of support.
I think like reaching out to kind of guiding, I guess, a little bit, because like I said, funding is a big issue for like small rural counties. And with the information that we currently have that's older, it's going to take some time to update. So if there was some sort of like assistance with like building that GIS system, I think that would be really helpful, or like providing like maybe resources on where maybe some funding might be available for these types of projects for the rural counties.
Yeah, you know what, one sort of tangible thing comes to mind is I think you mentioned that your county is working on the housing element for the general plan, and you know, maybe some sort of a working session where we would pull in some other counties that had maybe recently gone through that process or had directly used GIS to enable that might be able to give some insights on how best to encourage that.
That we would definitely that would be good. I think we just started our current housing element ends in August of 2024. So now we're starting the seventh cycle of the housing element. So having more like GIS resources available, I think would be very helpful.
Yeah, thank you. So there's a question that came up: would regional GIS consortium model help to address that? And Jean, I don't know if you're able to go on mic and you know, give a little bit of insight on that. It looks like you gave us a oh, there we go. So thank you for the Solano Regional Consortium. So we've got a little bit of an example of you know, kind of what that would look like. Jean, do you want to elaborate on that at all?
Sure. My name is Gene Barrera, and I'm a GIS manager for the County of Merced. And I kind of thought we were a rural county here in the Central Valley, but nothing to the extent that what I'm finding through this presentation. So thank you for putting this together. This is really insightful, Dan. One of the things that we're looking at, we have several jurisdictions within our county that lack any GIS capacity. And we're trying to figure out ways that we can better support them as the County of Merced. We do have a kind of a robust GIS program for being a mid-sized county, but again, some of our jurisdictions don't have that capacity. And we were thinking, you know, what would be the best way to kind of consolidate all of our GIS resources amongst those users that do participate in creating and maintaining geospatial data to support those others? Or could the county take on that responsibility? And one of the things that come to mind is some type of cooperative or the implementation of a cooperative, going through some type of a strategic planning process around GIS, and then using that as an opportunity to kickstart or leverage our resources to better serve our local communities. And so Solano is kind of a good example of what they've been doing around data sharing and maximizing their use of their GIS talent to support some regional endeavors. And so I thought that might be a good way to look at how regional or rural GIS programs or planning departments might be able to leverage the resource of at a larger scale through, you know, through either a consortium model or some type of cooperative.
Thanks for sharing that, Gene. I think that is really on topic, and I think it's something that we need to figure out how to do well. And to be quite honest with you, you know, Marcus Harner, who's on our board as well, posed a question, and I'm going to rephrase that as a statement where Marcus and I are going to go up to Alturas and buy lunch for some people in Modoc County, and we can have this chat. But you know, the North State GIS, ostensibly, we were sort of trying to advance a little bit of kind of what Gene was describing, and I think you know, it sounds like there's some models out there and some structured ways that we can, you know, provide some resources, and again, I think to encourage the collaboration and the sort of consortium model as a good way to advance these things. We've got a few minutes left. I would love to see some additional questions in the chat if folks have them. I wonder while we have these last few minutes, Jackie, maybe you could just kind of share a little bit of your, like, give us some insights on what it's like up in Modoc County these days? What's the population? Do you tend to see sort of an aging population? Are you seeing, you know, folks that are moving into the area, folks that are starting to, you know, start new endeavors and so forth?
We're still not seeing a lot of economic development. There is a few more people moving into the area, and a lot of that has to do with actually Modoc County has lower taxes. We have a lot of land that's undeveloped compared to other areas in California. The cost of our land looks probably pretty good to them. There's just not much infrastructure. A lot of the times our young people do move out of the area and don't necessarily come back. There are some that come back. And there is an aging population. As the people that have been there for some time, they're still there, but they're aging now. You're just not seeing a lot of the younger people move back into that area.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the county is one of the biggest employers, and we do have some good employment opportunities available, but it is sometimes hard to find employees. I'm sure other counties are probably going through that same situation, to be honest. So,
you know, Jane raised the issue of the extent of federal lands in Modoc County, and I know that there are cooperative agreements that the Forest Service has entered into, for example, with the tribes. In some cases, we've heard from Kelly about their effort at the stewardship agreement, and I wonder if maybe there may not be an opportunity in there to, you know, provide opportunities for folks to pursue new ways of developing economically, you know, and through the community in some of these cooperative agreements. We did have a couple of other questions. The question of the cost of Esri products. You mentioned that you're on ArcMap. Have there been thoughts about open source or other sorts of platforms?
there hasn't been any talk about that. I know that we might be starting to maybe reach out to some consultants to try to help start putting this process together. We just have the lack of staff that know how to use GIS in the county. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Daniel's follow-up question, I think, in some ways sort of dovetailed with my previous comment, where I'm just going to read this. Curious if there's space for partnerships with local businesses, income source and/or information data source, colleges, universities through internships. Obviously, a cheaper way to get a labor source, volunteer integration for value-added products. And again, I think it's sort of a little along the lines of this thinking outside the box. And I don't know if you have any thoughts or comments on that.
I don't think that has been discussed or brought up. We don't really have we have the schools, but we haven't discussed it with any colleges or universities or interns for that type of labor or anything like that. Might be something to consider though, and bring up in a discussion.
We've done some outreach to what's now Cal Poly Humboldt, and have, you know, and we've had some high school interns. We've had, you know, some HSU and now Cal Poly has provided some of that, but we also have sort of similar kind of connections with professors and things over there. So it makes it, and their proximity obviously makes it sort of a lot easier for us to pick up interns, and, you know, that are actually like have some level of training, you know, so we wouldn't end up having to like actually increase our workload to bring people like that on. So we have had some success in that.
Let's see, Jean, you had a question. We are just about out of time, so if you had a quick comment.
Yeah, you know, along those lines, I think reaching out to the education institutions to build capacity around GIS is another kind of unturned stone, I guess you could say. We're doing some work with Stanislaus State in developing an internship pipeline. And so that enables us to work on projects at the university that have local importance around GIS. And that might be seen as another way to build capacity.
Yeah, thank you. We are just about out of time. Larry, you got a quick one for us to send us out? Maybe that was an inadvertent. Oh,
Yeah, can you hear me?
yes.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to mention that I've got extra time available right now, and I'd be willing to offer assistance to both Jackie and who's the guy with Trinity County?
Kelly.
Kelly. Yes, Kelly. My brain's not what it used to be.
No,
But
that's
yeah.
great, Larry. I appreciate the offer,
Yeah.
and I can connect you, and I think you and Jackie are probably connected, and
Yeah.
yeah, that's
So
great, and some real great things to. There's a link that Donna just put in about the GIS core, and I love the suggestion that Jean had, and of course Shasta College has students as well. So yeah, let's continue the conversation, and I want to express appreciation to all of you for taking some time out of your day today, and be sure to check out all that we have going on at cgia.org, and have a nice afternoon.
Thanks,
Thank
Dan.
you.
have a nice day, everybody.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate you hosting. Nice to meet you,
Yeah.
Jackie.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thanks
Dan.
to you
Thanks.
both. That was really interesting.
Yeah,
You
very
know,
good.
as these things go, you could just you know, I think we could have gone for another hour once that and I think that this whole coalition kind of idea, you know, there's a lot to that, and again, you know, I feel like you know, some of the stuff that Kelly presented really kind of showed how, you know, if you can enter into some of these sort of stewardship agreements, that, you know, there's no shortage of funds and resources in California. It's just a problem of how they're being allocated, and to be able to figure out ways to channel some of that energy into you know, the remote corners. You are the remote corner of our state, Jackie.
It's a lot harder for the county, I think. Like we're a special district, and because it's both a blessing and a curse, but because we're entirely grant funded, you know, like we can acquire funding and write into a grant, you know, line items for GIS technicians and managers and things of that nature. And if it's serving the, you know, the project, a lot of times that's how a lot of that stuff got built in the first place for us. It was basically just compilation, because we needed to have, you know, we were looking at large, like scale watershed kind of level things. So it was easy. It was pretty easy for us to fund that, where the county itself has a lot harder time, because all that stuff comes out of general funds or out of a specific department or what, you know. So we've worked with the planning department, we've worked with the Department of Transportation, we've worked with the sheriff's department, you know, like it's been really kind of sporadic working with them, because, you know, having them fund things that they need, you know, and with us having expertise to do it, you know, that funding issue is a problem. It's the reason why they don't have, you know, they've got a lot of end users, but they don't have a GIS department, you know. So that's a pretty major, it's a major setback at the county level. And even though the county's like, the county of Trinity is actually the largest employer here in Trinity County as well, it's still, you know, the tax funding base, because of the lack of private land, makes it so that they have to operate on a shoestring pretty much constantly, unless they're going out and getting their own grants to support specific, you know, processes within their. I mean, we do a lot of planning too. We do a lot of we work on safety elements, hazard mitigation plans, you know, like we're doing a lot of ancillary things, you know, housing element. We provided GIS for housing element updates, the general planning updates happening right now. And so, you know, it's tricky for the county to be able to like procure funds to be able to, do what they need to do. So we end up going out to CAL FIRE and say, like, we have $100,000. We're gonna update your hazard mitigation plan, and they go, okay, here's an MOU to allow you to do that. So it's part of it has to do with capacity building and workforce development, and part of it has to do with making sure you have the funding to be able to do those things.
Yeah,
That's the problem with small counties. I know I've dealt frequently with Alpine County, and they just tell me, well, we don't have that information because we fired our GIS guy 12 years ago.
Yep.
So,
It was 2007 for us.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think you really hit the nail on the head. When you don't have a tax base that can fund things, and given all the responsibilities that the counties are mandated to meet. And so, it does raise the question for you all, Jackie, about, I don't know if the Fall River RCD is the closest one. The RCDs are really in the thick of things around wildfire mitigation work, and the Western Shasta RCD is really active. The Shasta Valley RCD is super active. The Fall River RCD, there's just a big grant that came down from the Sierra Nevada Conservancy. So there's a lot of things that are happening, and I don't know if their area of influence extends in, but I think again, some of the things that Kelly talked about is maybe it's like you were saying, it's a mixed bag, right? You guys have to be running down grant funds all the time, but then you're more nimble in terms of what you decide to work on, and that's.
Yep. And we deal with a lot of other RCDs that are low functioning. Like I think up in Modoc, I think it's lava beds, Black Butte RCD or something like that. There is an RCD up there. I think Fall River, I don't think quite goes up into Modoc. If it does, it's only a little bit, and it's related to the
you're right,
forest or something like that. But
all right, here we go. So it's the lava beds, Butte Valley.
Butte Valley, that's what
let me drop this into the chat. Yeah, and again, maybe one avenue might be to really try to get with those folks, and then if you could leverage some of these other more experienced and resource RCDs, it might be a chance to sort of spin things off into something that might kind of advance things.
Sounds good. Thank you for putting that in the chat, and thank you for your comments too, Kelly. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, Jackie, reach out to Denise Wesley, because you were talking about she's put together data portals for the county. She's put together, we built a like a parcel viewer that has all that information, so that it basically saves time on the county's end for not having to do lookups and all that kind of stuff. Like, it's right in ArcGIS online. You pull it up, you can get pretty much every piece of information about any given parcel, except for like private landowner information. But by and large, like zoning, school districts, fire districts, all that kind of stuff is sort of in there. So she'd be able to help you out.
Okay, thank you. Oh, thank you. I will make a note of her email address too. Appreciate that.
Larry, on your offer,
I do need to run though. I gotta.
I think we're out of time. So take
nice
care.
to meet you, Jackie, and thanks for the opportunity, Dan. I appreciate it. It was good fun.
Yeah, we'll be in touch.
Okay.
Larry, I was just going to say, if you want to drop your email address into the chat. Of course, Jackie, you're a little bit far afield to take us up on the pizza offer, but if Marcus, if you want to drop your email in there as a fellow county GIS person, and we have talked about this for years, wanting to go out and reach out, and if there are folks that planners or other folks at the county that would benefit from us being able to come up there and just, we could do Marcus's idea of the pizza lunch is great, but also, sit down and actually talk substantively about, some of the things that we could do with GIS. And actually to that end, we could pull you in via, a Zoom session on a conference call or something like that. And maybe even, identify some sort of wish list things that you're interested in seeing happen. And we could, Marcus or other folks at the county may be able to give some insights on how they address that.
I'd appreciate that. I really appreciate all the help. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't figure out how to get the chat there. So I'll just say that Jackie, I believe you're in the Geog 15 remote sensing class with me. So we can just contact there. Okay.
Okay. I actually had to drop that class because some things came up, so I'm not right now. But
Oh,
you
I
can
see.
send me an email. Here, I'm going to drop you my email address into. I think for you to pull up the chat, Lawrence, you can just push the chat button. I don't see, can't.
Yeah, I see no chat button, but
No.
anyway.
Yeah, we can certainly connect you to, and if you want to just
Where
copy
that
Jackie's
is.
email, and you can shoot her an email, Larry.
You're right.
All right.
I can send the chat file to Dan and he can send it off to whoever.
Yeah, there you go.
We
That'll
have the
work.
chat. Yeah.
I accidentally typed the wrong email address. Don't mind me. There we go. I can't pull it back, but it's the second one. It's at co.modoc.ca.us. So.
.us.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for hanging around a little bit, and we'll be posting the recording of the session so you can share it with your colleagues.
All right. Thank you, Dan, for the invite. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for doing it.
Thanks.
Have a good day, everybody.
All right. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.